As the year comes to an end, we look at the key events that shaped 2023. Israel declared war on the Gaza Strip after an unprecedented attack by armed Palestinian group Hamas on October 7th. Thousands have been killed in relentless Israeli bombardment, many of them women and children.
This baby is dead. They're taking him to the fridge, basically.
The Russia-Ukraine conflict entered its second year with no end in sight, as Russia vows to continue until Kyiv agrees to a deal. A volatile year in U.S. politics that saw the humiliating ousting of House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and the rise of the extreme right.
8 people can throw you out as Speaker. I think you've got a real divide. I think you've got a real institutional problem.
After record-breaking extreme weather,
hearing no objection, it is so decided.
COP28 climate conference delivered a historic deal. A new wave of multilateralism, with BRICS welcoming new members for the first time in 13 years.
这次扩员是历史性的。
And despite a shaky start, China-U.S. relations ended on a high note, with President Xi and President Biden meeting at a summit in San Francisco.
Well, Happy New Year in advance, everyone, and welcome to our special coverage, Our World. I'm Li Dongning in Beijing.
I'm Zheng Shi alongside Dongning today. 2023 has been an eventful year with cascading challenges and crises, but it also witnessed the international efforts made to address the risks and pursue peace and development via multilateral practices.
Right, and this show will take you back to key moments that shaped our world in 2023, and will also provide close observations and by our reporters and in-depth analysis with experts in various fields. And first, let's look at the geopolitical unrest.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
My administration's support for Israel's security is rock solid and unwavering.
Widespread famine looms.
立即停火是压倒一切的前提。
Ukrainians haven't given up and won't give up.
So it was a chaotic world indeed in 2023, and we saw a lot of heartbreaking scenes, especially from Gaza. And it's been more than 2 months since the conflict between Israel and Hamas began. Our correspondent Noor Harazin was ordered to evacuate from northern Gaza and has been taking shelter at Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital. She tells us her story there and what she has witnessed during the conflict. But the following video contains potentially disturbing content, so viewers' discretion is advised.
Here in Gaza, weeks pass as if they are years. People say everything has changed since the start of the Israeli-Hamas conflict, and those still alive have changed too. Back in mid-October, after the Israeli army's repeated orders to evacuate, I left my home in northern Gaza. I did not take anything except an emergency bag and a few clothes for my children, Sarah and Bassam.
I was displaced to the Shuhada Al-Aqsa Hospital in Deir al-Balah. Here in the hospital, we witness and live through many stories. I still remember the story of Sheikh Khalid, the grandfather of little Reem, and her guardian after her father traveled.
The young girl and her 5-year-old brother Tariq were killed in an Israeli air raid on the Palestinian refugee camp Nusayrat in central Gaza. I was there when her grandfather bid Reem farewell, the last hug, the last kiss, and then to the shroud bag. This day was a turning point in his life. He started visiting the hospital every day, volunteering and helping those in need.
Reem has a special place in my heart. She used to come and hug me every day, but now I'm the one who goes to hug her spiritually in her grave. Today, I was at her grave and talked to her about our situation. Then I cried a lot. I cried alone to myself.
The health system inside the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital also has changed radically over the past weeks. The hospital had a 300-bed capacity. Now there are more than 1,000 wounded people here. As many as 3 children might share the same bed.
More than 4,000 martyrs and more than 8,000 wounded have arrived at the hospital. Al-Aqsa Hospital cannot receive such large numbers of injured people and care for them, especially in light of the significant increase in the number of displaced people.
The end of this year has been tough for Palestinians in Gaza. Now, their greatest hope is to survive this conflict and return to their homes. Noor Harazin, CGTN, Gaza.
In addition to Noor, obviously, we have another team on the ground in Israel to document every step of this crisis as it unfolded. CGTN reporter Feng Yilei visited Rayan in Israel to review how the conflict started and the main events and consequences.
It was a day of horror and bloodshed. On October the 7th, Hamas and other militant groups launched a surprise attack on Israel from the Gaza Strip, firing thousands of rockets and sending gunmen across the border. They targeted Israeli army bases, border communities, and even an outdoor music festival.
Here in Re'im, where the music festival took place, you can still see traces of that dreadful day. It was the deadliest attack on Israel since its founding in 1948, killing over 1,000 people and resulting in hundreds being taken hostage.
We sacrifice all we have, all our heart for this country. Every day the hole is bigger in your heart, every day.
Israel responded with a massive military campaign with the stated aim of eradicating Hamas. The military ordered Gaza civilians to evacuate as airstrikes rained down on the enclave, followed by a ground troops invasion, with Israel saying it was acting in self-defense. As the operation is about to enter its 3rd month, Israel's resolve has only strengthened. The goals include dismantling Hamas on one hand and releasing those held captive on the other. In November, a temporary truce brought some respite, allowing the release of some hostages and prisoners as well as aid into Gaza. But it was short-lived, as Israeli and Hamas leaders remained far apart on key issues. Israel then extended its military operation, while Hamas responding with more rocket fire. The price is heavy. On the diplomatic front, international pressure is mounting. But so far, key players remain gridlocked as they attempt to mediate a ceasefire. After repeated failures to pass anything substantial, the United Nations Security Council approved a compromise resolution calling for more aid to be allowed into Gaza, but not for a ceasefire in late December.
At this point, as you can hear, dual echoes of both mourning for the victims and the sound of artillery firing towards Gaza. Israel wants the Gaza Strip to be fully demilitarized and rid of Hamas to avoid future threats. Many, however, are calling for a ceasefire to end the bloodshed. The world is watching and waiting as the path towards lasting peace remains unclear. CGTN, Reem in Israel.
All right, now for some analysis into the Israel-Palestine conflict, and we're joined by Mr. Teng Jianjun, Director of the Diplomacy Studies Center at Hunan Normal University. Welcome to our special coverage in the new year. Well, the conflict in Gaza has come to its 13th week already. Time really flies. And so far, Israel has killed more than 20,000 people there. And it says it plans more attacks in the coming months. I'm not ambitious to see a full stop to the whole conflict soon, but is there a silver lining somewhere?
Yeah, I think this is a very crucial moment for the countries concerned. How can stop such a military operation by Israeli military at this moment? So we know the Israeli government has already considered that this might be the last and the best opportunity for Israel to completely eliminate the militants from Hamas. And I'm sure at this moment no major powers would like to be involved deeply in this conflict, and the regional countries like Saudi Arabia, like Iran, like Syria, they also don't like to be involved deeply in this conflict. So this time the Israeli government think that this is the best opportunity. But I don't think the Israeli military can completely eliminate the presence of Hamas militants, because you can kill the militants, but how can you eliminate the hatred? How can you eliminate the determination to fight against Israel? So this is a very complicated situation. I don't think the Israeli side can give a very efficient operation in the short term. So that might be a month for the Israeli military to go ahead and for the international community to find a peaceful solution to the conflict.
It's not easy, it's very difficult, but still we want to see the end of misery of Gazans as soon as possible, also the release of the hostages as soon as possible. We hope that this conflict will not last as long as another conflict.
Absolutely not. Mr. Teng, thank you for your analysis. In the interest of time, we'll leave you there, but do stay with us here on our special program. We'll be back with you in just a moment. Now, to narrow the focus on our special program today, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine continues, with neither side having made significant gains in months. As the year comes to a close, there are signs that both sides are preparing for a protracted fight. Megumi Lim reports from Kyiv.
2023 began in darkness for many in Ukraine. Russian missile and drone attacks on the country's power grid during the winter damaged half of Ukraine's energy infrastructure. The attacks continued into spring, and many were forced to take shelter at metro stations and bomb shelters. When summer came, Ukraine's counteroffensive began with high hopes. But the effort was bogged down against Russian forces. Kyiv's objective was to move its troops southward to cut off a critical land bridge connecting Russian-occupied Crimea from mainland Russia and liberate territories in the east. While Ukraine waited for weapons deliveries from Western allies, Russian forces spent the spring months securing their defensive lines. Thousands of landmines and deep trenches along a 1,000-kilometer-long front line kept Ukrainian troops from advancing.
It created I would say the situation very unlucky one for Ukraine. So we argued for the fact that we need weaponry for offensive, but in meantime, when we eventually get this decision and this shipment, it was too late.
Out at sea, merchant ships faced renewed risks when Russia decided to withdraw from the Black Sea grain deal in July. Moscow announced that any civilian ship passing through the Black Sea would be considered a military threat. But in August, Ukraine opened a temporary corridor and began attacking Russian naval assets, pushing Moscow's ships to the eastern coast of the Black Sea. More than 100 cargo ships have since passed through.
The fact that the country with no classic navy was able to ensure the freedom of navigation and functioning of the so-called grain corridor, and more than 7 million of tons of both agricultural products and iron ore and others, since they were exported from Ukrainian Black Sea ports. So it's the biggest success of our campaign.
Ukraine's economy adapted to the conflict as exports picked up and businesses were helped with foreign financial aid. The World Bank said the Ukrainian economy was expected to grow by about 3.5% this year. But the costs of reconstruction are mounting.
On the outskirts of Kyiv, you still see buildings and houses like these damaged. They're still waiting to be rebuilt, just like many others across Ukraine.
In December, EU leaders agreed to open membership talks with Kyiv.
This is a historic moment, and it shows the credibility of the European Union, the strength of the European Union. The decision is made. We open negotiations with Ukraine.
But Western military aid has come under greater scrutiny. The U.S. has struggled to get Congress to approve more.
Without supplemental funding, we're rapidly coming to an end of our ability to help Ukraine respond to the urgent operational demands that it has. Putin is banking on the United States failing to deliver for Ukraine. We must prove him wrong.
Existing funds are running out, and without new aid, officials have warned that Ukraine could lose the conflict. As the year comes to a close, Ukrainian soldiers are digging in. Megumi Lim, CGTN, Kyiv.
Let's continue our studio discussion with our guest, Teng Jianqun here. Mr. Teng, as Dongning mentioned just now, we've been watching with so much pain at how protracted the Russia-Ukraine conflict has been, and now at how deadly the crisis in Gaza is. What we don't see is an end in both crises. What we do see is compounding economic costs, bearing down not just on regions, but on the world as a whole. If you look at these two crises, do you see a longer-term economic crisis on the world economy, on the global economy as a whole?
Yeah, I think the international community has already suffered a lot from the two conflicts, including the suspension of the the sea lane by some military organizations, and also in Europe. I'm sure the European countries have already, paid the high price, including the oil, gas, and also the food supplies from Ukraine. Used to be given to the Middle East and to Africa. By this time, all, have already completely, stopped. So this is a very serious challenge for international community, for food security, for international trade. And the result should give a very negative impact on the world economy. And but some countries would like to continue such conflict. For example, the United States. If you look at the policy adopted by Biden administration, President Biden might continue the conflict in Ukraine to next November. Next year, November next year, when the presidential election, get a result from the campaign. So I think this is really a very complicated situation, and the European countries, especially Ukraine and also Russia, have already paid high price for the conflict.
We've already seen the spillover effects. They're not just political, they're economic as well, and the toll is taken on the world.
The world economy cannot take another strike with the two conflicts plus COVID. I think it's serious enough.
No, not at all, especially given the volatile recovery we're seeing right now. You're watching our special program as we reflect on the year of 2023. To the next story we're following for you. The United States assistance and handling of conflict in Ukraine and in Gaza have inflamed underlying domestic tensions. But those are not the only divisions boiling over in the U.S. Let's now take a look at how the political and social divides deepened in the U.S. this year.
I've never seen anything like this.
Every path they have pursued to date will inevitably lead to a shutdown.
And everyone in the country knows it seems, except Democrats in the United States Congress.
There are no winners in a government shutdown.
Chaos is Speaker McCarthy. The United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant.
So I may have lost the vote today, but as I walk out of this chamber, I feel fortunate to have served the American people.
300-mile round trip.
The resolution is adopted.
It is a sideshow.
Evidence uncovered has shown a very disturbing trend by the Biden family.
We will make America great again.
This trial is a disgrace.
Well, indeed, the year of 2023 brought change, crisis, and intrigue in the United States. And CGTN's Jim Spellman has the details.
2023 was another year of divisive and contentious U.S. politics. Last January, Republicans took control of the House of Representatives, but a small group of firebrand conservatives forced 15 chaotic rounds of voting before electing Kevin McCarthy Speaker of the House. Less than 10 months later, McCarthy was ousted from the speakership. For 3 weeks, the House relied on a temporary speaker before Republicans settled on little-known Mike Johnson. Former U.S. President Donald Trump and a handful of other Republicans are seeking the nomination for the presidency and a chance to take on current President Joe Biden. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and former ambassador to the UN Nikki Haley are hoping to catch Trump, who has a wide lead. President Biden has experienced low approval numbers, and House Republicans have launched an impeachment inquiry against him over issues including financial dealings with his son Hunter, despite releasing no clear evidence of wrongdoing. Hunter Biden is facing a special counsel investigation into his business affairs and felony indictments on tax charges and allegations he lied on a form while buying a gun while addicted to drugs. In June, the Supreme Court overturned decades of so-called affirmative action policies at U.S. universities, finding that race can no longer be used as a factor in college admissions. Those policies aim to address decades of racial discrimination in the U.S.
I'm worried that it's going to set America back, that it's going to limit opportunities for students of color, and it's going to limit progress that we've seen in the last few decades.
The U.S. continued to struggle with climate issues. In August, a massive wildfire on the Hawaiian island of Maui killed at least 100 people and destroyed hundreds of buildings in the historic town of Lahaina. Floods, heat, storms, and other extreme weather events claimed hundreds of lives and cost tens of billions of dollars in other parts of the country.
So 2023 sort of blew the record book in terms of climate disasters, in terms of extreme heat, extreme rainfall, and all kinds of these weather events that we anticipate happening more and more frequently as climate changes.
In February, a Norfolk Southern train derailed in Ohio, spilling toxic chemicals. The rail company and the federal government say cleanup efforts have made the area safe, but concerns remain over long-term impact. In June, a privately operated U.S. submersible known as Titan lost contact with the surface while on a mission to examine wreckage of the Titanic.
Our crews are working around the clock to ensure that we are doing everything possible to locate the Titan
and the 5 crew members.
The world watched closely as a massive search mission tried to find the lost craft, only to discover a catastrophic implosion killed all 5 aboard. Gun violence showed no let-up in the U.S. In January, a gunman attacked a dance studio in Southern California, killing 11. A former student attacked a school in Nashville, Tennessee, killing 6 in March. In October, a former Army reservist went on a shooting spree in Maine, killing 18. Just some of the dozens of mass shootings the U.S. experienced in 2023.
I'll be 100% honest. I'd love to tell you that maybe this is the one that spurs some sort of action. If we're honest, and I'll be honest, it won't be.
2024 will likely see more mass shootings in the U.S., more extreme weather, and more divisive politics leading up to November's congressional and presidential election. Jim Spellman, CGTN, Washington.
Very dramatic year for the U.S. And for some insights into this, we're now going live to Joseph Gregory Mahoney, Professor of Politics at East China Normal University. Happy New Year in advance, Professor. Well, we see political polarization in almost all the major events in the U.S., including the saga of Kevin McCarthy and the Donald Trump case and the presidential campaign in general. It is intensifying, and some people believe that this is a sign of regression of American democracy. Do you agree with that? And what's causing this polarization?
Some point to long-running and still unresolved culture wars over, for example, abortion, gay rights, and so on, as well as entrenched racism and inequality, the long-standing problems associated with gun violence, which continue to get worse, police brutality. Others to an intergenerational breakdown in American capitalism, including the erosion of real wages and growing income inequality, which has been established as a trend going back to the early 1980s, at least, and certainly worsened with the crisis in 2008 and 2020, as well as the continued dysfunction that we see in government. Now, old problems continue to worsen while new problems appear. Nevertheless, the system is still fighting over issues that no longer represent what Chinese policymakers might regard as the primary contradiction, or indeed they're focused on relatively minor issues that have become intentionally inflamed by political opportunists who are exploiting regional, racial, religious, or class differences, and so on. So in some cases, this is intentional as a politics of distraction, instigated perhaps by those who want to resist real reforms or who are seeking narrow self-interest. But it's also, I think, advanced by those who present themselves as providing the grand solution to the nation's problems, even if their positions are unrealistic or marginal. In fact, in this highly polarized society, even minority and relatively radical positions can become kingmakers, as we saw with Speaker McCarthy's downfall and the challenge of electing his successor.
Professor Mahoney, it's Zhongshi here with Dongning. I mean, we kind of are the outsiders looking in here, and the closer we look at these issues, mass shootings, strikes, anti-abortion protests, the more we feel that the divides are getting deeper in the U.S. Many headlines throughout the year indicate growing social divides in America. Do you feel that anything is being done to bridge those divides?
Well, you know, if we ask what can reverse this, I think we sometimes point to singularity events like the pandemic as offering opportunities for people to come to their collective senses, unite around a common purpose, and then push forward with constructive solutions. Unfortunately, the pandemic only made matters worse in the U.S. More common historically, when some societies approach what they perceive to be existential tipping points, they embark, unfortunately, on military misadventures to discipline themselves while externalizing their problems. Now, some worry this trend is already in play, given the U.S. pivot against China. However, this tactic never works, and it only makes matters worse for whatever country starts it off. Now, I think the U.S. has two types of problems. The first is a systemic one, and the system itself is unable to change itself at present. And the second is a generational problem, one that might resolve itself as the older Cold War generation dies out and as the younger generation ascends into power. Now, I really believe in the potential of young people, especially today's young generations, to do better for themselves, to do better for each other and for the world. And as long as we can prevent everything from being destroyed in the meantime, before they inherit it, I expect them to do better in the future.
Professor Mahoney, we've picked your brain many, many times in the past year. In the new year, we hope to continue to talk with you for valuable insight into these situations. Thank you so much for joining us and Happy New Year to you.
Well, a lot of dramas happened in the political world and the natural environment is not indeed helping. The climate crisis continued to worsen in 2023, creating disasters that affected millions of people. So now let's look back at some of the key climate events this year.
You'd be having a conversation about climate change. You're just letting people have fun here.
We are living through climate collapse in real time.
Hearing no objection, it is so decided.
And not helping might be just an understatement when we talk about the weather this year, Doni. This year has seen record-breaking temperature extremes at both a global and regional scale. From January to November, the Earth was an average of 1.46 degrees Celsius warmer than pre-industrial levels. From June, every month was the hottest on record, including the warmest July for at least 120,000 years. And on November 17th, for the first time, the planet smashed through the 2 degrees Celsius warming threshold set by the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement. But despite the global heating, there were also bouts of abnormally cold weather as climate change caused weather systems to break down. In February, a historic cold snap swept through northeastern United States. In May, over 100 weather stations in Australia reported their coldest minimum temperatures for the month. And in December, temperatures plunged to historic lows for the month in many parts of northern China. Beijing suffered over 300 consecutive hours of below freezing temperatures, the longest for December in more than 7 decades.
Indeed, the coldest winter I've experienced in Beijing since...
it's visible, everybody can feel it.
It's visible, and you know, I bought a lot of down jackets this year for maybe next year will be colder, who knows. Well, from June to September, indeed, devastating floods and landslides triggered by heavy monsoon rains claimed over 200 lives across Pakistan, and the country was still struggling to recover from catastrophic floods the year before, which killed 1,700 people and displaced millions. And for more on that, let's cross over to our correspondent Daniel Han in Islamabad. Daniel, hello there. So is relief and reconstruction continuing after the floods?
Well, yes, in a stark update, 1 year post devastating floods in Pakistan, the United Nations, UNICEF, has revealed that millions of children still remain in dire need of humanitarian aid and access to essential services. The aftermath has left some of the nation's most vulnerable districts grappling with heightened challenges, exacerbating pre-existing issues like malnutrition, limited water and sanitation resources, and low school enrollment among children. The impact on critical infrastructure, including public health facilities, has widened existing disparities, exposing the population to an increased risk of hunger and disease. I recently visited one of the hardest hit districts in Sindh province, situated in Pakistan's southeast, and I saw that the condition of the people had not changed or improved even after 2 years. The affected residents were left without vital assistance. They continue to look towards the government and the NGOs' intervention to aid in the reconstruction of their homes and improve their overall well-being.
We are in a very bad condition. There is barely anything to eat. We lost everything to the floods. Our homes, our crops, our livelihood, everything. The grains that we had rationed were all washed away. Our livestock was killed. It's been 2 years, and you can see the water is still there.
Well, Lee Donning, now that election season is coming, the flood-affected people are more concerned and worried about their future. With harsh winter, they say that they have completely lost hope in the current system or even in the government.
Right, we do hope to see that. Thank you very much, Daniel Han, reporting from Islamabad.
And the United Nations COP28 Climate Change Conference wrapped up in Dubai on December 13th. Nearly 200 countries approved a final declaration following heated negotiations that extended 24 hours beyond an initial deadline. For the first time in history, nations agreed to reduce the global consumption of planet-warming fossil fuels. And here's a recap of the moment when the historic deal was sealed.
You showed flexibility, and you put common interest ahead of self-interest. We have the basis to make transformational change happen. I invite the CMA to adopt the draft decision entitled Outcome of the First Global Stocktake, contained in document FCCC/BA/CMA/2023/L.17. Hearing no objection, it is so decided.
Historic moment indeed. And for more insights into this, let us speak to Ms. Wu Changhua, Acting Chair of the Governing Council of the Asia-Pacific Water Forum. Well, great to have you with us on this program. This year, we've also seen the first global stock take on the world's progress towards the 2015 Paris Agreement's targets. And the report said the world is significantly off track in limiting global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius by the end of this century. Are we running out of time to turn things around? And why is the threshold of 1.5 degrees Celsius so crucial?
Thank you for having me on this program again, and Happy New Year. And yes, 1.5 degrees Celsius has been accepted or designated by scientific community as roughly a threshold that beyond which and the catastrophes, destruction, damages could be way beyond our tolerance, not only for human beings, but also for the planetary Earth as well. We are already living in a warming world of about 1.2, 1.3 degrees Celsius already. So we've realized, we know how devastating that could be. And you could literally imagine if it's beyond 1.5 degrees and how calamitous and disastrous actually our living environment will be. And now, of course, we are sort of running out of time because recent scientific study says we probably will cross 1.5 degrees warming next year, sometime next year. But of course, that's not going to stay there forever because natural fluctuations will bring down the temperatures from time to time. But we'll definitely experience more devastating, extreme weather events and climate disasters there. So mentally, physically, we need to be prepared for that. In a broader context there, scientific community has also designated about 26 thresholds of the Earth systems there. Just imagining with 1.5 degrees warming or above, and we're going to experience more, melting of the glaciers in the Antarctic region, in the Greenland, in the Arctic region, and we're going to see more thawing of the permafrost, which is not only releasing more methane, global greenhouse gases emissions, but also potentially infectious diseases, virus there as well. And the coral reefs will be dying more. And so the whole planetary system will be at a much worse situation. And of course, the consequential, they will impact our human lives on this planet as well.
Not very optimistic picture indeed, depicted by Ms. Wu Changhua and a lot of weather experts, I think. Thank you very much, Wu Changhua, Vice Chair of the Governing Council of the Asia-Pacific Water Forum, and Happy New Year to you too.
And in addition to COP28, world leaders have gathered at other conferences and summits in the past year to tackle global challenges and strengthen cooperation. Here's a quick look.
10年来，我们坚守初心，携手同行，推动“一带一路”国际合作从无到有，蓬勃发展，取得丰硕成果。
अफ्रीकन यूनियन के अध्यक्ष को G20 के स्थायी सदस्य के रूप में अपना स्थान ग्रहण करने के लिए आमंत्रित करता हूं।
Well, the eventful year of 2023 has witnessed lots of multilateral efforts for global governance and development. An expansion of both the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and BRICS, two international organizations with majority membership from the Global South, was announced at their summits in July and August. And the G20 summit highlighted the bloc's resolution to act in concrete ways through partnerships to accelerate strong, sustainable, balanced and inclusive growth. And the African Union became the second regional organization to join the bloc. And the Regional Economic Forum, Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, underscored multilateral coordination as the key for tackling multiple global challenges. And the third Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation hailed the 10th anniversary of this initiative. And our CGTN's Yang Chengxi recounts his experience over the past 12 months visiting BRI projects spanning the globe.
Over the course of the past decade, the Belt and Road Initiative has expanded international cooperation from the Eurasian continent all the way to Africa and Latin America. China has spearheaded over 3,000 cooperation projects, catalyzing investments of nearly $1 trillion. For the BRI's 10th anniversary this year, I embarked on a journey across 4 countries.
This is Pakistan and China border.
So we're crossing into your country?
Yeah.
I visited projects ranging from a new high-speed subway in Turkey and a new pier in Greece. One of the most unforgettable experiences was a road trip along the world's highest road, the Karakoram Highway, crossing from China's western border into Pakistan, accompanied by Pakistani traders.
So this is essentially about connectivity and infrastructure development, but more than that, it is a vehicle, a means for people-centered development, to use it as a platform to enhance livelihoods for people.
Pakistan is a key Belt and Road partner of China. A prime example of this is Gwadar Port.
Currently, Gwadar Port is divided into 2 parts, the port and the free trade area, with a total investment of 2 billion Chinese yuan. The multifunctional port has a total length of 672 meters and can accommodate 3 ships of up to 20,000 tons simultaneously.
These Belt and Road projects extend beyond business and trade facilitation. There are also Chinese-backed schemes benefiting local populations, such as this all-girl middle school and the new seawater desalination plant in Gwadar.
And all of these experiences have brought me to this place behind me, the National Convention Center in Beijing, where the 3rd Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation was held in October 2023.
State leaders and representatives from over 150 countries attended the forum, discussing high-quality cooperation, common development, and prosperity. More than 450 outcomes were delivered, setting the stage for the initiative's next decade. Yang Chengxi, CGTN, Beijing.
And to discuss this, let's bring in CGTN reporter Zhao Yunfei in our studio and Wang Huiyao, founder of the Center for China and Globalization, who joins us via Skype. Gentlemen, fantastic to have both of you on our special program. Yunfei, you have covered a slew of diplomatic events and global summits this year. I'm curious about your biggest observations and takeaways.
Well, Zhongshi and Doni, I think the biggest takeaway is that China is really wanting to seek friends rather than seeking confrontation. If you take a look at the trips abroad the President Xi has conducted this year, which I covered some of them. He went to the United States and meet with President Joe Biden. That was considered one of the highlights of the diplomatic ties. And he also went to South Africa to meet with President Ramaphosa. So it's a combination of developed countries as well as developing countries. It's a balance. And what about home diplomacy? Just in October, the Belt and Road Cooperation Forum gathered leaders from 150 countries, as well as the Xiangshan Forum, the gathering which gathered the security officers from around the world. The U.S. sent the delegation, but at the same time, the forum really promote a platform for military officers to have a say from developing countries. One side stories that have been covering the events, which is back in South Africa, we're trying to look for a great spot to cover the meeting between President Xi and President Ramaphosa. And we were trying to seek for, we found a really great spot, which is you can have a great view of the street, and it was a balcony of a hotel. And what we really did is that we wanted to reserve that space. So we thought about maybe pay for it, or maybe reserve a night of the hotel stay. Guess what happened? When we go there and talk to the manager, and they say that you can have this spot for free, simply because of our relationship. What relationship? I guess it's a relationship that China has been committed for a long time for the developing countries.
Well, very interesting story of the balcony. And this year we have seen nations patching up relations and multilateralism taking up more of the stage, like what Yunfei said, the relations of the BRICS countries. What are some highlights in global exchange and cooperation in 2023, Professor Wang?
Yes, I think this year is 2023 is remarkable because China has totally opened up, and China has re-engaged very actively in the global scenes. And of course, China has President Xi visited quite a few times. There was a highlight of a BRICS summit, and there was a highlight of signed a U.S. heads of state summit. Both, I think, has injected the stability and, of course, more confidence for the world. But on top of that, also China has domestically has built up many international global platforms like Shanghai Import Expo, Beijing Service Trade Expo, but also we have also the Digital Trade Expo and Supply Chain Expo. That's all designed for the world. But of course, also I think finally is that we see there's more events happening in China. There's more tourism. There's more traffic. There's more think tank. China also very actively engaged on the global scene. We're visiting many forums and events. Munich Security Conference, Davos, and
indeed,
Doha
Professor,
Forum,
multilateralism should be the mainstream in the international arena, and China is doing that in the right way, along with other developing countries and global south. Thank you very much, Mr. Wang Huiyao, founder of the Center for China and Globalization, also our colleague, our reporter, Zhao Yunfei as well. And that's our special coverage of our World 2023.
In 2023 really witnessed a world rising above a pandemic, forging new partnerships for recovery and stability. It was also a year marked by despair over long-standing conflict and the ravages of climate change.
But still, hope springs eternal. With sincere wishes for peace, justice and prosperity for all, we embrace 2024. So now we leave you with key moments that shaped our world in 2023. I'm Li Dongning in Beijing.
And I'm Zhong Shi. We're hoping to end this special program on a slightly more positive note for our viewers. Thank you so much for your company. We'll see you in 2024.
See you.